Hey, how's it going? Mike from Mike Rolls Dice, and welcome back for another video about Konflikt 47, but this time something a little different. It's been a while since we've done anything hobby related here on the channel with Konflikt. We've been focused on trying to film some hopefully entertaining battle reports. Ever since Konflikt launch, I think it was last September in 2025, I started out with the US Army. My buddy Rev, who is the one who helps me film all the battle reports here on the channel, he got the Soviets, and from the starter box then I built the Axis. He went with the Commonwealth and also the Japanese, so we have all 5 armies for the game essentially. And Rev even ended up making some Axis and US armies, so that left me with the choice, either I could continue expanding, maybe getting some British or some Japanese for instance. But one idea that I had was, after finding out from one of the most recent expansions and from a map that we saw, we could see that the Axis made it all the way down to Turkey and took over Turkey. Now my father's Turkish and I'm half Turkish, so immediately that piqued my interest and I was like, well, maybe perhaps we could do something related to some Turkish army or Turkish resistance, for instance. And there's multiple ways we can go about it, but the idea is I kind of want to try and make my own custom army faction. I've never gone about trying to do something like this, but either way I think it's going to be a fun project, for instance, and it'll allow me to do some fun kit bashing, some 3D printing stuff, and try something different in Konflikt. That being said, I think today we're going to get started with some basic infantry and pulling some inspiration from some Ottoman and some World War II era Turkish troops. So you can see here we have a box of Italian Army black shirts from Warlord Games. Now the reason for this is I did some scouring, and I'll put some images up. So essentially in World War II, Turkey wasn't involved in any combat with the Axis or Allies. They stayed neutral for the most part, but ended up joining the Allies near the end of the war and declaring war on Germany. But they were getting out of a civil war at the time, so they ended up not joining. So there isn't a ton of history about the Turkish military in World War II. That being said, after doing some research and seeing what the uniforms look like and some basic research on the army structure and stuff, just scouring through Warlord's website, I ended up picking and choosing the Italian black shirts here. Now the helmets and the heads aren't necessarily going to work, but the uniforms fit pretty well. So by swapping out some heads and painting them the right color, I think they'll do the trick here. I couldn't find anything with the poofy pants, but some of the Turkish troops had some really poofy pants up in the legs there, but I think these will do just fine. To go along with the Warlord box, I ended up finding some War Games Atlantic Ottoman World War I heads, because I couldn't find any World War II Turkish army helmets, obviously, or heads, but for the most part, these should work. So I think they're gonna end up working out pretty good, and we can end up, they're not a perfect match with some of these hats that stick up a little bit, but they should work all right. These should come in handy for helping sell the look on the Italian models. And then last but not least, I also 3D printed some War Games Atlantic Demir Squad Infantry, or Demir Squad Guardians. I essentially went and got all of the Demir Squad Infantry, the Command Squad, and the Cavalry, which you'll see, because I think these are going to fit perfectly for what we're going to end up doing. But they kind of have like a futuristic Ottoman style look. They have some gas packs. They have some close combat weapons like some swords, and they also have, these are the infantry models, they have blunderbusses. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some basic infantry, and we'll slowly end up building up the army. But I think it'll be fun, and it'll be able to open up some different areas for us to play around with too, like the Anatolian Plateau. Alright, let's crack this box open here. So these come with 30 of the Italian Army in black shirts here. It does come with some decals and stuff. We're not going to be using those. Got our bases, which we love. And we'll take a look at one of the sprues here. I'm assuming all the sprues are identical, which is usually how it works, and then they give you a lot of options to pick and choose what you want. Really the main reason I ended up going with the Italian troops was just the way their jackets and pants looked and everything like that. And it ended up fitting for the most part, I think. But so we have some different options. We're mostly going to be going with rifles. We'll probably have some submachine guns or assault rifle options if they're available. But these are going to be not inexperienced troops necessarily, just basic infantry that we're going to be using to hopefully score some points. Let's get one of these guys cut out and see what they look like. So getting started off here by cutting out the bodies for the Turkish troops here on the sprue. You can see they're pretty simple. They just have some basic ammo packs and maybe a sling bag. So really don't need to cut much for these guys. And I think these Italian blackshirt models ended up being a good choice for the Turkish troops that we're making. So I chose to basically cut out mostly rifles here, but I did make one loader and MMG from each sprue as well, just to have that option. And just cleaning up the sprues here, the great thing about Warlord models is there's very minimal mold lines, so it's very easy to clean up, as you can see. But these Italian blackshirt sprues come with essentially, basically mostly rifles, some SMGs, and a light machine gun option. So getting these guys put together here, choosing the rifle option for most, and some of the LMGs and loaders. And throwing that sling bag on the side, choosing not to put too many accessories on these guys to keep it simple. So you can see the 3D printed Ottoman heads here from War Games Atlantic. The problem is there's not a neck on them, so trying to glue them on there directly wasn't going to work. So that means we're going to have to break out the green stuff. So after cutting off a pretty small amount of green stuff here and mixing it up, we're going to go ahead and try and use this as a way to kind of build up some height underneath and essentially make like a neck, an area for the Ottoman heads to stick onto. Now one thing to note here is I probably used way too much green stuff. You only need a very small amount, but you'll see here I ended up taking the sculpting tool and trying to clean up some of that excess material. What I recommend is if you're doing this in the future, use a very small amount of green stuff because you really don't need much. You'll avoid any extra green stuff getting onto the clothing or the collars of the jacket, for instance. With that big chunk of green stuff I had, I might as well put some heads on some bodies, and I ended up making about 15 or so bodies. That tiny bit of green stuff, and just taking my tool and sculpting them in so they're just a little bit more natural looking. I'll probably end up building the rest of these on my stream, and then you guys will see the end result. That's movie magic. Now moving on to the Demir infantry squads from War Games Atlantic. I 3D printed these on my Elegoo Mars 3, and taking some super glue here because these aren't plastic, it's obviously resin printed. So I'm just going to go ahead here and glue the arms up and most of the accessories and get ready to prime them. These come equipped with either shotguns or some pistols and sabers, as well as these gas packs. So these are a nice option to give us a futuristic sort of Ottoman or Turkish style infantry for an advanced or specialist infantry for Konflikt 47. Now we've already come up with some different rules on our stream, but we haven't finalized anything. The idea is the army in general will have some sort of alchemical ammunition to give them a benefit in combat, being that they don't have rip weapons, and alchemy infused armor as well, to give them a type of power armor as opposed to being covered in heavy thick steel plating like the Axis power armor. Got all the Turkish infantry built up here, as well as some of the Janissary specialists or advanced infantry, and getting them ready to be primed here. I'm happy with the choice for the black shirts. There probably is some sort of bolt action miniature that might have been an even better fit, but honestly I got a good deal on them too, and I think they ended up looking really good. So essentially the way I primed them is we took some black spray paint, primed them, then I airbrushed them brown with some German brown colors from essentially above and from the sides. 'cause early on in this project, I went with a German beige color on top of the brown, so I thought the brown would kind of help get it to where I liked. But even after painting them this beige color, the color didn't match exactly the way that I wanted to after looking at the Turkish uniforms. So getting another Vallejo World War II paint set and going with the dark sand, which you're going to see here, we airbrushed the whole army afterwards with a coat of the dark sand, and I think that really helped tie it together. So now just painting some of the trim. Again, these are very simple uniforms, just the dark sand color and some brown paint on the trim and on the boots and some of their accessories and pouches. And then painting up some of the weapons and accessories that they have as well, using some black. For the Janissaries, I wanted to do something special. I actually tinkered around with a bunch of different color options and schemes, and essentially settled on something like this. Using a makeshift camo pattern, we have some red and some white in the classic Turkish colors, as well as some bronze for the metallic sections. So starting off with the dark sand airbrush over the brown and the black primer, I'm going to go ahead and make a makeshift camo pattern, starting off with some black here, and just kind of doing some random patterning, trying not to make them too splotchy or large, and kind of draw them out. Originally I wanted to go with a tiger stripe camo, but I was kind of struggling trying to execute it on the infantry, so just settled somewhere around here. One of our viewers, Sean, shout out, a wonderful painter, pointed out that the colors were quite bright, so I decided to break it up with some brown splotching in between the black on the camo patterning. I think it ended up looking nice for a desert style or arid sort of battlefield camo pattern. Now I do want to go with white for the pants and the undershirt here, so we're going to start off by painting them in darker gray color and building it up until we get to a brighter white color. This is from one of the army painter sets that comes with various gray colors going up to matte black. Choosing white for the undercloth, using some inspiration from some of the dervishes and the outfits from the whirling dervishes that you're going to see is going to have a really big influence on how the army functions and looks here in the future. Now, one thing I want to note here is some of these colors are going to be quite vibrant and bright. This is definitely going to need some sort of a wash near the end, but we're nowhere near done with painting and waiting on some supplies to come in. I have some sepia inks in mind, or maybe just some traditional army washes, but either way, we'll figure it out. After getting the undershirt painted and the pants, we're going to go ahead and start with the red colors for the cloaks and the helmet on the Janissaries. Now, after playing around, I decided to take some bright red speed paint, go over the dark sand areas. I wasn't necessarily happy with leaving it like the way it is, but we're going to let this dry and we're going to come and revisit it here in just a moment. After painting all the metallic areas black, I went ahead and took some dark gunmetal and essentially just lightly applied it to a lot of the metallic areas, and then went ahead and hit it with some bronze on top of it just to add that nice sort of metallic or patina look, and just to break it up from the normal gunmetal, which I think fits the Ottoman vibe or the Turkish vibe very well. After our red speed paint has dried, I went and took out the Mephiston red that I had for my Blood Angels, the air color, and just applied it over, and it really helped kind of tie the red together, as well as painting some of the wood stocks and the pump action handle on the shotgun. And last but not least, taking some brown paint here, painting the skin tone, and then slowly building it up with a lighter peach color. And of course, the final touch, trying not to screw up the eyes here and just applying some pupils. And there we go, there's our Janissary, but we're not done yet. We still need to do power armor, glow effects, as well as some sort of wash, but it's a good start. You can see here after a week or so of finally getting most of these painted up, just applying some of the brown for the trim, the weapons, and the black. Certainly getting a lot done, but it's just a start here for our brand new custom Turkish faction for Konflikt 47. Well, thank you so much for watching. My name is Mike from Mike Rolls Dice. We're going to have a couple videos here covering the process of making this custom army with the miniatures and printing and painting them up, as well as a final video with a reveal of the army rules and the unit abilities before our first battle report. Well, thank you so much again for watching, and thank you so much to all of our channel members and everyone who watches here and supports the channel. We couldn't do without you folks. Well, until the next battle report or video, as always, keep rolling high on those dice.